Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ho 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 Holiday Month here on Makai-World Reviews. And today we'll be looking at a movie that is open to some dispute whether it is a holiday film or not. That is, of course, Die Hard. Now, Bruce Willis says it's not. Well, he didn't write nor direct the film. He's just an actor, so I don't care what he thinks. It takes place in December. It takes place at a Christmas party. It's about people getting gifts. It's a damn holiday film. So yeah, let's not debate this too much. Let's just get right into the film. So go ahead and hit subscribe, and we can continue. Die Hard, directed by John McTiernan, a man with a criminal record longer than his movie one, but he has some doozies, like the original Predator, The Hunt for Red October, the two good Die Hards, and the frankly underrated Last Action Hero. This was based on a novel called Nothing Lasts Forever by Roderick Thorpe. There's a whole can of worms there regarding actors and remakes and whatnot that I'm not going to get into. But the screenplay was done by Jeb Stewart and Stephen E. D'Souza. Jeb wrote a couple of other films like The Fugitive and Leviathan. While Stephen, well, he was something of an action-writing legend at this point, with The Running Man, 48 Hours, and Commando all under his belt. He would go on to inexplicably direct the Street Fighter movie. All right, I knew I remembered that name from somewhere when I reviewed Street Fighter. Starring Bruce Willis. I mean, legendary actor. The acting part is open to some debate if he was good or not, but he's been in classic movies like 12 Monkeys, The Fifth Element, Death Becomes Her, and of course, the various Die Hard movies. I hear Bruce isn't doing so well. I'm genuinely sorry to hear that. And Alan Rickman in his first movie acting role, somehow. We have another legendary actor known for his quick wit and facial expressions, probably most well known for his appearances in the Harry Potter films, of which I was not really a fan, but he did a good job and I did see them. We lost Alan in 2016, and the world is worst for it. Release date was July 15th, 1988, it came out the same week. A Fish Called Wanda, a John Cleese vehicle about a diamond heist with Jamie Lee Curtis, Kevin Kline, and fellow Python alum Michael Palin. A movie I actually quite like. It's got a good sense of humor. It was also funny enough to kill a man, so good on ya. And Hobgoblins, a classic movie, but only because it was one of the arguably best Mystery Science Theater 3000 episodes. A poor film besides that about small monsters. If you've seen any other small monster movie, you've seen a better one than Hobgoblins, and we'll be looking at one next week in Gremlins, so yeah. Moving over to the plot, we meet one NYPD detective, John McClane, headed to Los Angeles to see his wife for a Christmas party at her work at Nakatomi Tower. They are essentially separated, and she's begun using her maiden name. To get to the party, a limo driver named Argyle picks him up. They become fast friends of sorts. This is the 80s, so the party has champagne, cocaine, and sexual exploits going on in offices. John is welcome at the party, but him and Holly have some tension that is not resolved when the bad guys show up, seeming terrorists of various racial backgrounds who round up the partygoers, save John, who managed to escape into a stairwell, but does not have any shoes on. Hans is the head of the bad hombres, and they want the $600 million in bearer bonds behind a very secure vault. But John begins to be a thorn in their side, contacting the police, which initially goes nowhere, killing some of Hans' men, and generally taunting them throughout. Finally, thanks to a cop named Al and a near-death experience with the terrorists, the police arrive and attempt to take charge of the situation. After taking a walkie-talkie off of a dead terrorist, John and Al keep in contact, and Al informs John of all the police foibles. Hans and crew handle the LAPD with superior firepower, such as a rocket launcher, and it's not long after the FBI show up to negotiate, which Hans gives them a load of terrorist bullhockey, which his true plan is to take the hostages to the roof, blow it up along with the FBI helicopters they asked for, and escape with ambulances vehicles they had brought in the sub-basement. One big problem, John has detonators he got from the dead terrorists. Han goes to check on the progress of the explosives and meets John. He pretends to be a hostage, and after some nonsense, he is revealed that Han's men blow out the glass in an upper floor, so John has to walk through broken glass, and he does, and it's awful. John is essentially hobbled, but he continues on against the baddies who now have the detonators. Hans and the gang get into the vault and begin the final stage of their plan as the FBI copters arrive. During this time, thanks to the media, he finds out Holly is John's wife and takes her personally hostage while the others are sent to the roof. John manages to get the hostages off the roof, but is shot at by the FBI, who thinks he is a terrorist. Hans blows the roof, taking out the FBI. John manages to survive thanks to some hose bungee jumping, and the final showdown begins. John takes out Hans, and we get the classic death of him falling from the building. Everyone is saved. Al takes out the last bad guy. John and Al embrace, and Argyle takes John and Holly to her home to see their kids. Of course, they kiss to end the film. Alright, The Wild Man of Borneo here, and let's talk about the film. Directing in Cine, this is a very smooth film. It looks polished, refined. The layout of the building makes sense and becomes a part of the story itself in an engaging way. Some really iconic shots in this that endure to this day, such as John looking down from a broken window after having thrown a chair through it, Hans falling off the building, a number of others, and that's due to the strength of the cinematography. We never miss a beat here. Everything we need to know is communicated to us clearly. That's especially important in a movie with a little bit of twists and turns like this one has. The fights are also well done. There are not many, but they are bombastic and cinematic. People complain about the reality of fights in movies, but I don't really care. I like MMA and boxing, kickboxing. I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for a number of years, so I appreciate a fight. But in a movie, I don't need them to be realistic. Here's a perfect example, namely John versus Carl. How to do a movie fight that keeps you engaged. So yeah, this movie is widely considered to be a triumph of the action genre, and it's not hard to see why. Moving on to the characters, John McClane, starting with him, this is maybe, slightly arguably, Bruce Willis' most iconic role, maybe besides Pulp Fiction, and with good reason. He plays John with a lot more subtlety than you might have imagined. Sure, he's a tough, hard-nosed, wisecracking detective from New York City, but we see him scared, jealous, hopeful, at various points in time. Some of the best parts of the movie are him interacting with people, him and Argyle, the limo driver, and it shows John can appreciate a clever person, even someone vastly different from himself. His stuff with Holly, he loves her, but resents her job and her name change. With Hans, combative, but there's a sense of respect there to the very end between them that's kind of charming. With Ellis, who is doing coke in Holly's office when John comes in, and Mrs. Takagi, Ellis's boss, says, "Oh, yeah, John is a cop." John mentions Ellis, "You missed a little bit." These come back later when Ellis tries to swindle Hans and gets killed, and John does his best to save him. But really the best interactions are him and Al. Both cops seem to have lost something. John, his family, and Al, his courage after an incident where he shot a teenager. They connect, and the conversation gives us a lot of exploration of John's psyche we could need. It's kind of a clever trick. Keep the action going around us and literally just have two people talk about things. It often doesn't work in movies, but when they finally meet and hug, it's a genuine moment. It's also worth saying he didn't make John over the top. He's not very likable, to be honest. He's crass, rude. Fighting Carl, he mocks him about his brother's death, who John killed. He also gets hurt. The fights he wins are close. He's bruised, battered. The foot stuff with the glass is, oof, you ever step on glass? It's the worst. To Hans, Alan Rickman knocked us out of the park. It's a guy who had only done stage plays, which is no easy feat in any capacity, but it's a different world from movies, especially action films. Hans is a really great criminal. He's clever, calculated, but he's not cold. We see him get angry, find things funny, be polite to Holly at her request for a couch and a bathroom break for her hostages. I like his plan. Seem like a terrorist cell. Ask for ridiculous things like other terrorists being released from jail around the globe, some of which he only heard about in Time magazine. Really, he's just a thief, an excellent thief by his own accord. I can't understate the aura he has about him, and literally one of my favorite moments in the movie is when he brings out this classical stage actor training. It's when he finds out via the TV that Holly is married with kids, and he looks at a turned-over picture to see, yep, her husband is John McClane, who he had interacted with earlier, and his reaction to that is genuine shock before turning it into seeing an angle he can take advantage of. To Holly and Bonnie Bedelia, who did a great job with what she was given, which wasn't a ton. Holly isn't in the movie an incredible amount, but when she is, we see a calm, composed, strong-willed, and helpful woman. She has a few moments of quick wit and lots more of quick thinking. I like her, but she kind of felt regaled to the damsel in distress role by the end, which was used effectively here, but wasn't wholly necessary. She definitely gave more than she needed to in scenes that she got, and remains a memorable character that I don't think we ever see again, at least not in the 3 diehards that I've seen. Maybe she comes back in 4 or 5. I have no idea. I'll talk about my 2 favorite characters before wrapping up the rest. Al, Reginald Val Johnson, is fantastic in this. I grew up watching Family Matters and always loved him. This honestly felt like an extension of Carl Winslow in the best possible way. I know this came out before, but still, he is the soul of this movie, from being seen as a kind of joke of a chubby cop to being John's rock on the outside, to talking about his honest issues in his life, murdering a teenager on accident, to being a hero at the end, killing Carl, getting his mojo back, as it were. Now, I'm hardly a cop fan. So that arc doesn't always sit well with me inside. This is fiction, so I suspend my disbelief here. But Al is the man, and the hug he had with John was more romantic than any moment John got with Holly the whole film. Theo as well. Clarence Gilliard is my favorite villain in this. He's like this cackling tech expert madman stuck between the stoic barbarian German guy and the mastermind. Just wanted to point out that he has a level of energy that made his role for me, and Argyle took him out, which was cool. Sadly, we lost Mr. Gilliard last month. What a shame. Also, the people in this, the dickless guy from Ghostbusters was a shifty reporter. The asshole principal from the Breakfast Club was an asshole police sergeant. Al Leong was in this. Al Leong, sorry. And I love this dude. He was Genghis Khan in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. He was in Big Trouble in Little China. He was in a ton of stuff. Just a fun guy. I do have a question, though. I thought his character died earlier when John blew up the first floor. Him and the guy who looked like Huey Lewis. But he shows up near the end for John to kill. It's supposed to be a twin, whatever. And all the rest. Moving over to the music, an excellent action soundtrack. It booms when you need to boom, slows down when you need to slow down. We have romantic cues. This is how you do a movie soundtrack correctly. It adds its accent to the movie. It doesn't take away. It helps you understand the scenes. It gives it some context emotionally. We also got Run DMC's Christmas in Hollis, which was great. Overall, an excellent action movie and one hell of a ride. Has some real effective twists and turns. They're not too complicated, but complement the movie well. It's memorable characters, memorable moments, and action that will keep you on the edge of your seat. This is definitely a bit of a bro film, and absolutely a few beers would add to it, but I think if you enjoy action films, anyone can enjoy this film. Also, Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Screw you who think otherwise. Well, that was, of course, Die Hard, a Christmas movie about people on the naughty list not getting their gifts, and also the incompetence of the LAPD, which probably doesn't need to be said. That's a fact everyone knows about. But please add me on the Instagrams under Demon Peaks. Check out my Patreon where you can support me for as little as $1. Don't forget to come back next week. We will be looking at Gremlins. Subscribe, and finally, please have a good day, a good week, a good holiday, a good whatever. Thank you so much. This has been the Toner Makai, Master of Minds and of Men, and goodbye.